What is up, beautiful people? It's Wolf Brother Mythos, and welcome to the Frost and Fists. I'm your Wolf Brother Mythos Kushranada, and so I'm just doing a little painting here on a Monday, and it's just going to be a short paint session today, a power hour, if you will. And yeah, I just wanted a little company while I did some painting today, so I threw on the camera, and away we're going to go. So today, what I've done is, boop. So far, I've just primed up my Manticore here, and I'm going to start priming some Guardsmen. And I'm going to do it all by hand. I don't feel like breaking out the airbrush for this because they're just tiny Guardsmen, and I don't know. I don't enjoy using the airbrush for a bunch of small infantry. Typically with infantry, hey, brother Brian, Mini War Mutt, good to see you, my brother. Often doing the stop and starting with infantry, especially when using primer. For me, what tends to happen is I get a lot of dry tip and gunking up my airbrush. I'm not an airbrush pro, so I first started doing priming by hand after watching Mini Warzone Pete on his On the Bench series. He often primes by hand, and yeah, after watching him do it when it comes to just bits of infantry, I've started doing the same. Here I have some very cool Wargames Atlantic Eisenkern Stormtrooper infantry, and these are what's going to be my basic Guardsmen. And yeah, I really like the sculpt. I've got them. You'll notice my bases are all flipped upside down. That's because I'm recessing all of my bases, so that way my officers are going to, I fill them up with swamp water mix from AK Interactive. And you can see here, they're kind of marching through the muck as I filled their little swamp bases with these materials. And so that's why they're on inverted upside down bases. So, thank you, Mini Warmutt. So today we're just going to slap down some primer on some of these base Guardsmen. I really like the these war games. Hey, gamers with coffee, good to see you. I really like using these Wargames Atlantic models for my Guardsmen because they really, they're called the Iron Core set. And there's the Eisenkern Stormtroopers, and I think the other ones are called the Panzerjägers. And the Iron Core set really has a very cool vibe to it, very extra armored. It kind of reminds me of the United Nations Marine Corps from the Halo video games, Not Master Chief, but all the humans that was running around with him. I'm going to set my Manticore to the side over here so I'm not bumping it. I'd hate to accidentally bump it off my table. It is 5 o'clock. Imagine Greg is somewhat close to being off the clock. You're in the clear because your clone went in for you today. Oh man, you got to figure. If you figure that one out, man, you got to let me in on that secret so I can start sending clones in for work. Yeah, so I used to really be confused watching Mini Warzone Pete prime like this on the benches because whenever he'd show his finished result, they always look smooth and clear, and I'm like, well, how do you keep it from globbing up? Because I've primed with airbrush before, and I've primed with rattle can before, and especially with rattle can, I've noticed if I primed, applied too much primer and it pooled up, it would really clump up and cover up some detail. but because these Vallejo surface primers, and I imagine other primers that are intended for the airbrush, because they have a self-leveling agent. They don't really clump up like that. They don't really block out your detail. So I've been priming like this after a few years after watching Pete. By the way, big fan of Mini Warzone Pete. He is one of the friends of the Frost and Fists in our link tree below. If you want to check him out, throw him a sub, let him know the Frost and Fist sent you. That would be awesome. Pete's a great guy with a great channel. It reminds me, I still need to go back and watch his Halloween P and Q. Who took my dice? Sup, dude? Hey, just priming some guardsmen here. Well, good. I'm off to be slapping the camera here. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm off to be a taxi again. Keep Mythos feeling all warm and fuzzy. Bye, dudes. Take it easy, brother. Superfly, let's go. Man, that obviously the one that you're close to finishing with all the ground cover, that piece of terrain you're working on, Superfly, looks amazing. But even the one that you just got your base coats down on looks absolutely awesome. Like, that thicker foam definitely adds some chunkiness to the buildings, but getting your graps filled in and getting the base coats down and whatnot, it's looking great, man. So those of us who join us on our Friday night shows know we normally do a 3-hour show on Friday. And that's usually because there's several of us running our mouth late into the night on a Friday. But this is just, I want to zoom this out a little bit. I apologize for shaking the camera. This is just going to be a power hour. And that's because I just am motivating myself to get in some more painting through the week. And I figured, if I was doing the 15 minutes bit before and I was getting lots of stuff painted up, surely adding an hour to my work week of painting here and there will really get me going. Especially since right now I've got 60 guardsmen plus 12 heavy weapons teams. So, I've got a lot of infantry to paint up. Although, a lot of people would say for a guard player, 60 infantry and 12 heavy weapons teams are rookie numbers. But someone's ditching out on work, I see. Oh, man. It's actually, I usually punch out around 5 o'clock when I'm working from home. So I say usually because you've seen before, if I get a last minute email or a phone call right before quitting time, if I get a project, you'd be surprised how many projects come in on my desk between 3 and 4 o'clock. Obviously I have to work later on those because I am on salary, so I am objective based, not hourly based. So while I typically call it, quits around 5 o'clock, that can always change. Wolf Wraith, my brother. Just chatting with this guy earlier, watching him work on a NIDS project, refinding his love for the hobby, which is awesome. Yeah, he's slapping an army together. Wolf Wraith, one of my all-time favorite hobby Twitch painters. Very cool guy, too. No big art project today, Wolf Wraith. Just slapping down some primer tonight. And as Mini Warzone Pete usually says with his On the Benches, taking advantage of y'all's company to knock out the mundane stuff, like laying down some primer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. So I really enjoyed the paint session on Friday night. And so when I decided, hey, I wanted to sneak in an extra hour of painting today, I decided to turn the camera back on. So that's what we're doing right now. Except this time I can't just, sip my coffee for, 20 minutes at a time and read the chat because only going for an hour right now. See, I've got 8 per row. I'm running out of paper towel, so I'm going to scoot this down. We make room. We get 10 full infantry squad on one row. Got to remember to stay on camera. Lots of guardsmen to get done. Absolutely. Now, I think doing these models in the way that I plan on doing them, I have an advantage over a lot of Imperial Guard players because I'm going to be painting these much less detailed. I think I just turned on Bixby.
First, use face recognition to unlock the device.
Every once in a while, I'll say something random that accidentally turns on Bixby, which is the user interface for my phone that does things like the auto dial and stuff like that. But good backup for all the tanks, absolutely, because this is going to be a tank-focused army. And that's why I'm only running 60 guardsmen right now. So if we look at the artwork, or the Eisenkern here, wow, that focused really nicely. We look at the artwork here, it's mostly the armor panels, which they've done here in gray, right? Which is fine. And I plan on doing that with my green color scheme I've done all my tanks in, which is Wa, Flesh, and Warboss green. And then, doing little bits of like the gun in black. It's very much going to be like this, except in my green. So, black for the guns, black for the gloves and boots, and then, of course, they'll be on my swamp bases. So it'll be very much like this, but with gloves and boots. So green and black for Cadia. And yeah, so because you can see there's not a ton of detail here. It's really just the armor plates are all a pretty flat gray, a wash, and some black for like the rubber bits like the gloves and boots. I mean, this is going to be a pretty simple paint scheme, I think. It's going to be some airbrush work because that's how I want to pop out some of my details. Airbrush or dry brush? I have a feeling that because they're so small, I might actually get a better highlight out of dry brushing. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, just going to be black base or black primer, Warboss green base coat, highlight, boom, little bits of detail. So this is going to be a pretty easy paint scheme, I think. Not that an easy paint scheme is what I was going for when I picked out these models. I've actually liked these models since before I got into Imperial Guard. When the Wargames Atlantic has these sculpts now, but they used to belong to a company called Dreamforge. And man, I wanted some of these troopers back when they were Dreamforge models. And I bought their Leviathan, their version of a Titan or Imperial Knight during their going out of business sale. And that's when I discovered these troops, but all they had left at the time were heavy weapons teams. And I didn't play guard at the time, but I was like, oh man, these models are so cool. I want some. And so I sent them over to Atlas, who found he could get a bunch of their heavy weapons team on discount for their going out of business sale. And now that I actually play guard, I've bought these made by Wargames Atlantic now, which I thought was pretty interesting because I guess they sold the rights to them. But what's not being sold right now are the heavy weapons teams. So I hit up Brother Atlas and I made a deal with him. And so I've gotten him some stuff for his 30K and one order of the Renegade Guard from the Kill Team box. I think they're called the Blooded. And that's it. And he's given me the Renegade Guard. So now, or he's given me the Dreamforge heavy weapons teams. So now my infantry matches my heavy weapons team. The drapes match the carpets. Swamp rats. I think something like the Swamp Rats is going to need to be my company name for these Cadians, since I've got them all based up in the swamp. The Cadian 109th Cadian Swamp Rats. But not a weed rat, rotisserie style. Sorry, I keep smacking the camera with my paintbrush here. Also, down in our link tree there, the Friends of the Frost and Fists, is Brother Elston Nation put out a new video today on how to paint thousands of models in a year. Which, painting all these guardsmen, I'm going to need some of them gifts. Oh, the Bayou Brigands. That's good. That's real good. So, yeah, it was a good video, and I'm definitely going to need to incorporate some of those tips in. Check that out over on the YouTubes. Again, down in our link tree, you will find our Brother Elston Nation along with many other of our Friends of the Frosted Fists. And also our brother Ravensrook was on today, and he announced the winner to his Orktober giveaway for doing an orc conversion. Feel your pain in the same boat, but with gaunts. That's fair. You can never have too many termagants. An hour is better than not getting any time. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and where I was before, I was trying to chip away 15 minutes a day to get stuff done, which, don't get me wrong, I've been getting stuff done with the 15-minute rule, but if I can squeeze out an hour, man, that's quadrupling my output for today. And who knows, if I get on and do this a couple times a week, I'm not going to commit to anything just yet because I never know what my work week looks like, and I should be getting back to traveling soon. I heard back from my boss because I guess with budgets and stuff like that coming due, things were kind of on all trips need to be approved by corporate before we get out and go see our clients and stuff like that. So, anyways, that's been eased up. I still got to run it by, or I already ran it by my boss. Have been approved. Go see your clients and stuff like that. But anyway, saying all that to say, because I never know where I'll be any given week because of work and stuff like that, I can't always guarantee what days I'm going to do this. But if I can do this a couple times a week, a couple of days where I'm quadrupling my painting output, from 15 minutes to an hour, I think that's definitely going to help me get through my backlog. I should adopt the 15-minute rule. Man, you know who put me onto the 15-minute rule? Our brother, Superfly, always checking in. So usually when I do my 15 minutes, I mean, even if it's just like I'm going to put metallics down on 10 people, or it might just be obsessing, over trying to find a bunch of rust bits on a tank for 15 minutes or, whatever. But yeah, sometimes I don't get much done at all. But, what Superfly told me when we were hanging out one afternoon doing some hobby is whether or not I'm at a place to get something done, as long as I put the paintbrush in my hand for 15 minutes, because sometimes you get overwhelmed by big projects, like right here with these, I'm working on a 2-man per heavy weapons team. So that's another 24. So I'm working on almost 90 guardsmen right here, and you're like, oh, well, I've only got a few minutes a day that I have any free time or hobby or whatever. When am I ever going to get, 90 guardsmen painted up? But if you just set aside, I'm going to do something for 15 minutes, that start is often the hardest part. And so I chip away at it today. Maybe I get half of them primed. And then the next time I come on, I get the next half of them primed. And then, maybe next time I lay down, I break out the airbrush and lay down the Wa Flesh green, But any progress is a step forward. 15-minute rule is the gateway to more painting. It doesn't sound like much, but it helps. It really does. I gotta say, I've gotten quite a bit out of wisdom and good tips out of my sessions, hanging out with Superfly and getting some paint down. I think I'm gonna try and do this every Monday at least, because I don't normally travel on Mondays. Now, I do say keyword try. I mean, obviously, work comes up, work's got to go first. But for the most part, I think I'm going to try and do this on Mondays. Get my power hour going. And then we can save the big show for Fridays. It's funny because when we were first talking about the 15 minutes, it kind of really clicked for me, because as he was saying, that getting started when you feel like you don't have much time to paint is always the biggest barrier. That made a lot of sense to me, because I know there's been a lot of times where I'm like, I have so much painting I want to do, but what am I realistically going to get done in, 20 minutes of sitting here or 15 minutes of sitting here? So just making yourself start. And like you said, even if you're just, all you do is put the paintbrush in your hand for those few minutes, That's one less barrier to you actually getting something done. So that was good stuff. Now, I really encourage everyone to go check out El Stadatian's video. About how to paint thousands of minis in a year, but something he's never made any secret of, something he's always been very forthright with every interview I've done with him or hangout. He says it a lot on his own channel. A lot of it is just putting in the time. And as Brother Greg said earlier, hey, 15 minutes is better than no time at all. So I like to think of it as the humble term, get it in where you can fit it in. And actually, so I have 35 of these guys built right now. And I think what I'm actually going to do is I might do some double dipping today. While the missus and I are watching something on TV later tonight. I think tonight it's going to be Markiplier. I think I might work on assembling some more of these guys. I think, I'm going to just work on doing a little assembly. Speaking of which, Superfly, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show the other night when you were on, but another thing Superfly has been trying to get me to do lately, organize my bits. I have 2 whole drawers over here in this bin I have behind my desk of just like sprues, out of box sprues with bits, some left over from squads I've built or conversions I've done, and some of them from, some of them are whole models that are still sitting on sprue. Anyways, so what I did was I spent like a good 2 hours the other day while we were watching stuff and clipped through just like a stack this big of Primaris bits. And got me a little container. I got me a pretty large container labeled Primaris bits. So I'm working on it. I'm trying to get the organization in. Trying to take the advice, my man. Working on clipping bits for organization and labeling them. I'm trying to boost my 15-minute rule. Trying to follow the advice of the sage. Just call me Mr. Helpful. That's you. Some of these on the row up front are already drying, and just seeing the primer dry on these guys, starting to look like the next step for these guys. It's giving me a sense of accomplishment. Seeing yourself make progress is definitely a really nice endorphin rush. A feeling of progression or achievement. One step at a time. Yeah, these were a bunch of the Primaris Phobos sprues that I had from a few projects I've done this year. I think for me, the next step is to go back through my drawer full of backlog sprues. And I know I've got at least a few sprue bits there from like intercessors and aggressors that I built. And yeah, just try and consolidate all of my Primera sprues together. And then after that will be the Firstborn Marines. And then after that, that should be the bulk of my extra sprues. And then I can start going into... I've done pretty good about keeping my orc sprues clipped and separated. So, yeah. Once I go through a little bit at a time... Hey, Freak, my man. Good to see you, brother. About to sit down with the wife and watch some Book of Boba Fett. Such a great series. Whoop. Up. Oh. Just snapped a little communications antenna. That is one thing I know many guard players struggle with, is snipping off, or breaking off the antenna pieces to their Vox casters. So I'll have to go back and try and add in a replacement right there. In general, these are hardy little plastic soldiers the Wargames Atlantic makes. So for the most part, you can drop them pretty well and they will bounce and hold together and take very little damage. However, the antenna is just so thin and fiddly. Yeah, getting a little work in, just getting some primer on. Lay down the black base coat first, and maybe the next time I come on, I'll have the rest of them built up so I can lay down some primer then. And then the first green, and then blend in my highlight green, and yeah, we'll just do a little bit at a time. And that way it won't feel like I'm suffering getting through all these guardsmen. Bite-sized chunks. Now, normally I do terribly at batch painting, but since I'm pacing myself and anticipating just doing a little bit at a time, maybe this won't be so bad. Oh, Slap Chop. I just saw a message about Slap Chop. What kind of primer are you using, and are you going to Slap Chop them? This is Vallejo Surface Primer Black. Man, I should have put... Oh, goodness. Check this out. I just closed the lid and just splattered my forehead with surface primer. You know, one thing I don't like about the Vallejo bottles is they dribble. Now I've got it all over my thumb. Should have put gloves on both hands. I don't plan on slap chopping them. I'm going to use traditional paints because I have a recipe that I've been using for my Imperial Guard. And it's simply Warboss or Wallflesh green from Citadel, and then Warboss green. And I think I'm going to use... They're so thin, I don't think I'm going to get a very good selective highlight from using the airbrush. So I think I'm going to go for a makeup brush blend. Get that fine dry brush going. I once batch painted 50 Moria goblins straight while working at GW in one go, and lightheaded when I stood up. Oof. Yeah. Have you seen his orc tumor of a mech. Friggin' crazy good. Thank you so much. Yeah, I showed it off a little bit on Raven's Rook today, but I haven't showed the chat yet here. So this weekend, I was on with Gamers with Coffee and had a little paint session. I started on this during our Friday night show. But yeah, this thing is coming along. You can see the cannon there. You can see the claw here. The claw, the claw. You can see the little bit of fade around the teeth where the red is. And that fade looks like I really worked hard blending it. And that is actually just some shading from Tamiya Panelier. Yeah, it is coming along. My Orky Behemoth here. Need to stop slapping the camera. Okay, Mythos, imagine telling Keegan to get in when you can fit in. It may not end well. So I'll just tell him to make time. That's right, Keegan. You get in where you can fit in. With consent, of course. I forgot I can highlight comments here on the screen. Boop. Yes, that you must have consent. Hey, 608. I think these are the last two soldiers I have for now. So I may even have about 10-ish minutes left extra. 10 or 15 minutes left extra. Could start a little more assembly. Yeah, I was on with Brother Greg and Mini Warmut for about 2 hours yesterday. And of course, I'd been painting on that Orky Mega Dread a little bit before the show started. But I was really surprised how far I got this weekend with that Mega Dread. I think really all I need to do with that bit right now is kind of look for splash color because, well, actually, I'll show you what my big concern is right there. But I'm almost done with this guy. All right, that is 30 dudes slapped down with primer. Superfly, check it out. Good hangout. Take care, my brother. Great having you with us tonight. Okay, so one of the things here that I'm trying to figure out what to do is that I want this to stay. Let's hide this camera for just a second while I zoom out. I've been unfairly slapping around the camera too much. Ooh. Boop, boop. Okay. That's a little better. All right. Okay, so I want it to overall resemble, black armor on top of all this metallics. That's what I've done with all the Def Dreads I've worked on so far. And for me, because it's mostly, you can see it's mostly scrap metal here and here, both legs. I mean, there's really no armor plating. It's just the exoskeleton there. Okay, and then you've got the body bit here, slash head, like body and head all in one. And the two shoulder pads are really the only armored places where you can recognize this as a, black armored dread, right? So I don't really want to color in too many panels. However, I don't know. One thing you can see, like in the sculpt of it, though, is that there's a lot of metal plates sitting on top of each other. Now, I might just leave it that way because I want it to be black armored, right? And I want it to be recognizable as black armor. So possibly they could have slapped on all these armor panels and then gone back and painted black on top of the hodgepodge of armor plates on top, which I think is likely what I'm going to do. Or I could go in and color in some of these with like metallics or rust color to represent that, as this thing takes damage, they're just slapping on more and more metal panels to patchwork it up. But then I'm afraid if I put on too many colors, it's going to lose the look of that, black armor for the main body and shoulder pads, where it'll be recognizable as a Goth Black Dread. I've also done some black on like the housing for the cannon here. But I think what I'm going to do is go with the idea of leaving this black, like they painted all these panels, like they painted everything black after they put the Mod Podge together and put the paint on top. And then what I'll go in is take some silvers and start doing some basically edge highlighting, like chipping the edges of the separate metal plates and just adding in some scuffs and dings and maybe some rust in some places where the scuffs and dings are, just to represent that each of them are its own metal panel, but without taking away from the look of the black armor I want. I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. Also, it's funny, I ended up doing my cannon. I felt like a little too rusty, a little too brown, so I added in a thin layer of metallic, just a very, very thin layer of a translucent metallic. So I did it to a lot of this, but like here, it's got, still retains kind of the gristly, grimy look. Here, I feel like the cannons come out a bit too silver. So I might have to go back and hit that again with a little more, dirty down or whatever. We'll see how it comes out. I've got some scarring here where I can try and put some of the rust into, the line of this scar here. We'll see how that goes. Overall, though, I feel like it's really coming along, and I feel like I'm getting to be close to being done with it. So, but yeah, I'm really loving it. I think because it is so silver here, I'm going to go ahead and put some wash on here, but I might put in some of my really bright blue and magenta heat bloom effect here to really, add in some color. Forcing some color in, I think, will be good. And I might do it on some of these bigger pipes back here too. Like this one's kind of sticking out. I imagine it could use a little heat bloom. That one's kind of sticking out. Maybe not all of them. I don't imagine all the tiny pipes would have as much heat bloom as some of the bigger ones. But yeah, I think adding in a couple of pieces of spot color would be pretty good. Something I want to try right now is we're going to try some add in a little green, because I've got a bunch of red here. And as a counter to the red, let's try some of this Tesseract Glow on. It looks like little plasma coils here. It's a flamer weapon, but it's got a name that reminds me of a shotgun. I'm not sure exactly what type of Booma weapon this is, but yeah. We're gonna. It's got coils like some kind of energy weapon, so I'm gonna add in some Tesseract glow and give it kind of a greenish glow. And so, I'd already dirtied everything down with the oil effects and whatnot, and streaking grime, and then I went in and painted some gray sear right onto the coils, so that way they'll have a spot to glow. So let's see how that goes. Okay, I'm trying not to get this everywhere. I want it really just on the coils. The coils continue under here. The coils kind of wrap around this whole thing, so. All right. Yeah. I think that little pop of green actually is pretty nice on there. So we've got mostly this dark black and red color scheme, and then just underneath where these little weapons are, a little bit of a pop. Pop, pop, peanut butter, butter pops. Pop, pop, put them in your mouth. Pop. You guys wonder where the pop, pop, peanut butter, butter pop song comes from. It's from the video game. Oh my goodness, what's the name of that game? Camp. Nothing. Nothing happened. The Quarry. That's what it's called. Really good game. It's got that summer camp feel, kind of like a Friday the 13th movie. But it's also got, it also deals a bit with, there's ghosts, witches, werewolves. All right, only got one thing done on this. Well, two things, I guess. Two of these little plasma flamer things. But yeah, and you can't even see it from this lighting. Oh, yep, there's an angle. But that's not bad. We got one thing done. Oh, and I still have 10 minutes. Okay, I don't want to mess with this too much because it's going to take a while for that contrast to dry. So I've got my prime dudes, by the way. This is what we're working with now that the primer's starting to dry up. Are you going to show up on camera? I guess the lighting is not great there for showing off the primer models. Plus, it's kind of focusing in on the models in the back. Ah, there we go. Yeah, now that it's not trying to focus on the rest of the models. Yeah, it's looking good all primed up. Ah, I know what else we can do. So I showed you guys the Manticore earlier, but I haven't primed the missiles yet. So there are some metallic bits to this. But what happens is the majority of these missiles get primed black because I paint the majority of these missiles black. And then I separately prime the tips of these Vallejo gray, which is like an off-white. That's just because I find it easier to get the black missiles with white tips starting with two different prime colors than having to prime it all one color and paint it separately, you know? Hey! Darklight Dreamer, my brother! Shelterin. Shelterin? It's funny because I was just thinking of some Darklight Dreamer commentary because I was just thinking that once I get off of the power hour here in a few minutes, I'm going to go start working on making some spaghetti for the family for the night. And just some simple spaghetti with meat sauce. Lily and I aren't supposed to have ground beef, so we usually do ground turkey. And then I season it up, taste a little more like beef. But yeah, that's what I'm doing for dinner tonight. What are you guys eating tonight? What's for dinner, guys? I'm a chubby man. I gotta know what's the deal with the food. Spaghetti! It's so yummy. I'm good, brother. I got to hang out with Darklight Dreamer this weekend. I always love being able to hang out with my brother. And we went to me and him and Lady Lily all went to our brother Atlas's house for our first live or first in-person game of D&D in years, or really our first role play in person in years. Like I said, I've been playing D&D online for about a year now, but having our first live session was awesome. I didn't get to hit anything with my ox yet because, we're still setting up the world, getting everything going. World building. Man, my camera is really off to the right tonight. I've probably been off screen most of tonight. But yeah, we were just kind of getting the game going. But hopefully next session I'll be able to smack something with my ox. But really, really cool story so far. So we're all adventurers who have, received a job. Some of us who have been given this job. Some of it, we've heard rumors of this job. But either way, eventually, we've all signed up for the same job. That's where we met each other, was at the establishment where this job came from. And it was to sail to an island with this researcher who was gathering information on a couple of tribes, one elven tribe, and my character is a half-orc. This really grabbed his interest. And a tribe encompassed entirely of half-orcs. And being that my character loves his tribe, but always felt out of place as a half-blood, you wanted to meet what a whole tribe of half-orcs would be like. Would he actually find, some kinship there? Would he actually find a place he belonged? In general, he wants to find some way to make a name for himself and honor his village, so that way he can bring glory to their name and maybe one day be welcomed back home. He wasn't cast out of his village, but people always looked at him warily and suspiciously because of his facial features and the color of his skin. He wasn't human. Something wasn't right with that boy. And so becoming uncomfortable with the way that, no one seemed to like him because the way the other reindeer wouldn't let him play the reindeer games, he struck out on his own. But if he found a whole island with tribe of half-orcs, he could finally play reindeer games. So, anyways, that's why my character struck out on this quest. Darklight has fried rice. Nice. Lupus for the old father. Good to see you, my brother. All right, that is 30 troops primed up. That is 4 large Manticore missiles primed up. And we have done the plasma coils on my Mega Dread here. So, yeah. For only sitting down for an hour of work today, we've knocked out a bunch of stuff. So I think this definitely qualifies as a power hour. What do you guys think? But yeah, I will probably do another one of these later in the week. I'm going to try and do a couple of these a week in addition to our Friday Night Live chats. I will for sure want to do this every Monday that I'm able to. It's going to help me get more stuff done. And often what happens around November and December is, like a lot of us, start to have less free time. And so my painting numbers go in the toilet and I get nothing done in November, December. But this is going to keep me motivated. This is going to make me, around 5 o'clock on a Monday, have an extra hour in my week where I'm fitting in painting. I'm still going to try and keep up with my 15 minutes a day. But this will give me a couple extra nights through the week where instead of 15 minutes, it's going to be an hour of painting. And the more often I can do that, the more often I'm going to get stuff done. And I invite you guys to get some stuff done with me. Or at least hang out and keep me company while I'm getting stuff done. Is that selfish? Probably. But I've really enjoyed your guys' company. And like I said, for only an hour of work, I feel like I got a lot of stuff done. So thank you guys for providing that company. If you guys like today's video, we've reached the end of the power hour. So please make sure that you grab up an ox and smash that like button in the name of the Emperor. Drop some comments down below, especially if you're watching from the archive. And feel free to be part of any of today's ridiculous conversations. And if you guys are not yet subscribed to any of the friends of our friends of the Frosted Fist listed in the link tree below, or if you guys are not yet subscribed to these guys, then we would love to have you as part of the pack here on the Frosted Fist. So subscribe. Until next time, stay frosty, guys.